Good evening. Can everybody hear me? Yes. Hi, my name's Tom Gill. I'm the president of the Civic Association. And we have just a little Civic Association business to take care of before we get to the mayor candidates. Your nominating committee has come up with a slate of officers. Thomas Gill, president, Alan Carlson, vice president, Tom Hulson, secretary, Bob Wilson, treasurer, Ann Grantham at large, Joan Quinlan at large, Lisa Boyle at large. And so my first question for you is, are there any nominations from the floor? I have to say there never have been any in the history of the Civic Association, but I'm obligated to ask. Having received no nominations from the floor, do I have a motion to accept the slate by acclamation?
So I'll move.
Thank you. Second.
Sure.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is passed. And with that, I would like to invite Tom Trott and Michael O'Connor. Welcome to have a seat at the front. That's what it's done. Thank all of you gentlemen for agreeing to come participate. First thing I have to say is please move the mic as close to your mouth as you can get it. We've got a long experience that.
By the way, the microphone in the middle is for a virtual presentation we'll have tomorrow.
And this is on. Yep.
Is yours on, Tom?
Yes. I'm going to give each of you two gentlemen 5 minutes to introduce yourselves. And following that, there'll be questions from the moderator and then from the audience.
2 minutes.
Each candidate will have 3 minutes to answer each question. So I'm going to pose the same question to Mr. Trott and Mr. O'Connor. If you answered the question the last time, you'll go first the next time. There will be no follow-ups unless one of the candidates sees fit to mention his competitor, in which case the candidate will be out of a minute to respond to anything that his fellow candidate may have said. Audience members, when we get to ask them questions, please ask questions for both of the candidates and don't try to direct them to just one. And with that, I'm going to go and sit down, and going alphabetically, we'll give Mr. O'Connor the opportunity to introduce himself first.
I can begin.
You may go.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to come out here and talk with the residents. I've had the chance over a number of years to periodically visit here with the association and talk about what's happening in the city of Frederick. And it's always great to come back to Warman's Mill. One of the things you find out during a campaign as you walk around the city of Frederick is how every community and every neighborhood loves their community and loves their neighborhood. They're very proud of what happens in their community and the unique ways in which each neighborhood looks at the issues and the challenges and problems and triumphs is really one of the things that I think makes Frederick so special. We've got a really diverse city, and Warman's Mill is a really important community that's part of that diversity. I am Michael O'Connor. I've been mayor of the city of Frederick since 2017. I served for 8 years on the city council, board of aldermen. It was called in those days prior to that. And my career in public service really predates my time in public office. I spent 20 years as an active journalist in Frederick County in radio and in TV. and about 11 years as a nonprofit business manager before I got into public life. And I consider that work to be community service because what I learned in my time as being a journalist in Frederick, doing a lot of that time covering city and county government meetings, is that the work that happens at the local government level, it's really hard to find anything that's more important. There's no place for us to run on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon. If we're in the grocery store and we encounter our constituents and they want to ask us a question, and that does happen, or we're out with a family at dinner and someone walks up and says, I don't mean to bother you, but can I ask you a quick question? I see you're here with your family. Would it be okay if I ask you a quick question? There's no graceful way to say, go away and leave me alone, because we signed up for this work. And I really enjoy talking to residents about what's happening in the city of Frederick, trying to provide clarity on things that they might have questions and hearing those concerns, because that's the only way that we know whether or not we're doing the job that voters have elected us to do. It's been an absolute honor to serve this community over 16 years as an elected official, 8 as mayor, because I think we've made a difference in the city of Frederick. And I think when you run for these offices, if you don't want to make a difference, you should probably think about doing something else. But we've looked at what our approach needs to be. How do we create a city of opportunity for everyone? How do we look at the vast diversity in our city and say, how do we ensure that every neighborhood gets what they need so that that neighborhood and the residents in that neighborhood can be successful? And so we've looked at the city, we've looked at all parts of the city, and we've tried to target our programs, our initiatives, our investments, and the work that we do to hit every neighborhood in some way, in the ways that matter to them most. I'll use one example here in Mormons Mill. We certainly had heard a lot of concern for a while about an agreement that had been signed.
Sorry,
That was 5 minutes.
2 minutes, isn't it? Didn't you say 2?
5.
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
You're okay. You're okay. You got a couple more
a
minutes.
couple more minutes. I'll try not to lose all of them. But there was an issue with the agreements that were signed way back when this development started, 20 plus years ago. About an access road, an emergency access, particularly what that was going to be and who's going to take care of it and whose maintenance responsibility with it. We heard the concerns of the community, and the city very recently said, you know what, we're going to take over that maintenance responsibility. It's going to be ours eventually, and we understood there was a lack of clarity. Some of the early meetings, and that's part of our obligation that happened long before I ever got into office, but it's one of the things that matters. It matters that when we enter into agreements with people, we're clear about whose responsibility is to do what, that everybody understands that when people move into neighborhoods, they know what the expectations are, that the city knows what its responsibility is. And to me, that's an example of the city finding a neighborhood with a unique situation and figuring out how we work with them to solve a problem that I think was honestly stressing out some of the residents in this neighborhood. And I don't think the city should be a source of stress for its residents. I think we have to find ways to understand the unique issues in each neighborhood and do what's necessary in order to problem solve on behalf of our residents. That's what we're elected to do every day. So it's been a great honor. I'm sure I'll have more to say about many other things that we have some closing at the end to wrap up. But thank you so much for the opportunity to be here this evening.
We'll try to do better with the
My name's,
management.
well, I want to first of all congratulate you on your election tonight. That was certainly heartfelt and seemed like it. So great work there. I'm hoping it bodes well for all the Toms in the room. I want to thank you, Ms. Mill, for having us out here and for the great turnout. This is awesome. So I'm Tom Trott, and I'm running for mayor of Frederick because it's time to get our city back to the basics, back to core government services that are going to work for everybody. And that's roads, parks, water and sewer systems that keep up with our growth. And I want to make sure our infrastructure is reliable, safe, and ready for the future. I look at things that have been happening on Route 15 and South Street and Patrick Street in town, and I don't think we're taking a mile-high approach to traffic. We're doing fine within certain neighborhoods, but we're not doing well with the feeder roads. And I think with what we built on Route 15 North, or just off and also south, it is we've asked too much of that artery, and we need to get things back in place so that we can get those extra lanes. I know that the county and the state are working on it as well, but it's just something that needs to be a priority, and hopefully will. It should have been something that we had looked at years ago. I'm going to work to attract new businesses and create local jobs, hopefully cutting down on all the people that are using Frederick as a town to live in, but not working. I'm hoping that we can get the federal and state government to have workforce places here for us. So if people are working at the Department of Energy, Department of Labor, and other places, and they need to go back in the office, well, they can go back in the office in Frederick. And we certainly have the land and the places, and frankly, some of the vacancy for some of those items. Our property taxes, in my mind, have been out of control. And part of that is driven by the fact that our assessments have gone up so much. But another part of it is we've got the county tax rate is about $1.11. City residents pay $1.02, plus we pay another 70 cents to the city. And I don't think the differential, that 9 cents, is enough. The county gets to use a lot of our services, and we use a lot of theirs. So I'm going to try to work with them and with their election in just one more year. I'm hoping that we're going to get a lot of city-friendly folks in there that are going to help us with the tax rates. I think the burden is too high on city residents. I want safer streets. I'll support community policing that keeps our neighborhoods secure and our residents protected. Now, we don't have a tremendous crime problem maybe around here, but in other parts of the city we do. We're having a vagrancy issues on Carroll Creek, which will always be there to an extent. We've got the rescue mission nearby. We have the soup kitchen. We have community services there. We have the library, and people are welcome to use our parks. They're welcome to use them all day long, but they're not welcome to become a nuisance by drug use and other things. I want to bring the police to bring back the bike patrols that they used to have downtown, or as Jennifer already pointed out, a kiosk on the creek. I don't know which one's easier. I just know that we need a bigger presence. I'm looking forward to getting the west side and east side regional parks moving. We've just had some great movement on the west side over the past week. And hats off to you, Michael, for getting those things done. West side we've owned for such a long period of time, and I think we've got a huge opportunity out there to continue to further develop it and do more programs on that side of town. Route 40, we've got a lot of disconnected shopping centers that require people to get back on 40 or back on Key Parkway. We'll be reaching out to the owners of those and try to get them opened up so that people can go right through. It'll benefit the shopping centers and not really take much of their parking out. I've been a mortgage loan officer, and I've owned my own mortgage company for a while now. And so I know a little bit about affordable housing, at least helping people purchase homes. I want to take my emphasis of what I've learned and what we get with the study that will be out in a few weeks, and hopefully find real solutions for people, and solutions for people in different income categories. Whether it's 80%, which helps out 80% of annual income, median annual income. We can help those people easily, but we need to find ways that for the people at 60 cents or 60%, 40%. We need workforce housing, and I'm ready to roll my sleeves up and get to work on it. I know how to get things done. I've experienced in business banking and community service. I bring practical leadership to City Hall, leadership focused on results and not politics. I'm Tom Trott, and I'd be honored to be your mayor. Thank you.
The first question, and as I told you, I'm going to ask both of you the same question, but since Mr. O'Connor started first with the introduction, we'll start this question first with Mr. Trott.
Start again.
Traffic at the intersection of Route 26 and Monocacy Boulevard sometimes blocks the intersection. The proposed Frederick Health development on Monocacy will make it worse. What should Frederick do about traffic in the Route 26 Monocacy Boulevard area?
Well, initially, when the proposal came through, there's a traffic study done, and 6 out of the 7 intersections have failed. So we cannot approve something that's gonna be that taxing on these intersections. And again, it comes up to looking at a mile-high view. It's great that their campus is gonna be fine, but it's not great that it's gonna clog up traffic elsewhere. So we need to find some other uses that maybe aren't as high density, maybe it's a hospice or something else, but I want us to be looking through the lens of the people that are living here and not exasperating problems. And I think that development would, sure, there's options where we can do other ramps off of 70 and that sort of thing, but I'm not for approving anything that's gonna create more of a problem, and from what I've seen, that's what we've got proposed there. We do need to let things work through the system and figure out if there's things we can do to mitigate those issues. There's some smart traffic systems that might help, but it just seems like right now it's too many cars and not enough space. Thank you.
Mr. O'Connor, what can we do about the intersection of Route 26 and Monocacy?
So the guiding document for the city of Frederick and its growth and development plans is our comprehensive plan. And if you look at the comprehensive plan, Monocacy Boulevard has been a master plan road for decades in the city of Frederick, and piece by piece, we've been building the missing connections, which have produced a east-west loop road, one that provides an alternative to traffic on Route 15. As part of that comp plan, there is proposed a grade separated interchange at Route 26 and Monocacy Boulevard. That is a project that has to occur in partnership with the state. And we need to get that project into the state's consolidated long-range transportation. Funding for that project, a lot of the engineering and design is not in that plan today. But advocating for that design and engineering funding to be in that plan has been part of both the city and the county's annual ask in our Maryland Department of Transportation letter for more than a decade. It takes a long time for these projects to make their way. The state is funding transportation projects in 24 jurisdictions across the state. And as much as we want to believe that Frederick County is the most important, and we are, they have to share their money across the state, and there are other projects and priorities in a statewide transportation plan. And the same way when the city looks at transportation, we can't fund every neighborhood's projects every year. We have to prioritize what's important. But that interchange, that connection, which is intended to improve traffic in this area to flow more smoothly, will be a critical connection at some point. But it's not the only one to address the project that Fredericks Health has for the former State Farm campus right down the road. We need a right in and right out connection off of 26, another project that requires the state to say yes to us doing that connection. What Tom has said about the failing intersections is relevant because we can't have projects moving forward that are going to overwhelm our transportation infrastructure. They have a long range plan for the use of this campus. The city wants to be a partner in helping them to achieve that. But we have to do it in the right way, and we have to mitigate where we can, and we have to ask the developer to mitigate where they can as well. And so we're going to continue to work with Fredericks Health. They have a vision for the build out of that property that's going to enhance and consolidate some non-hospital related services out there. And I know it's been rumored that someday that might be the site of a second hospital. I can tell you that proposal is decades in the future based on the state certificate of need process. So it's incremental progress because we're not going to fix these problems overnight. But the city's been an advocate and will continue to be an advocate for the transportation improvements in partnership with the state to make sure that this community works broadly the way it's supposed to.
Thank you. Mr. Trot, I need to get closer to my own microphone. The First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution says, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances.
You're going out at the end of what you say.
Closer.
Article 1 of the Maryland Constitution makes the First Amendment and other parts of the Constitution, the supreme law of the state of Maryland. What is the mayor's role under the First Amendment?
I think you were supposed to get this one first. In the interest of being collegial.
Yeah, no, I actually think you're right about that. And I'm happy to take it first. Listen, as someone who practiced journalism actively for 20 years, I think there's a reason the First Amendment is the First Amendment, because it was what our founders agreed was the most important thing that would distinguish our democracy from the monarchy that we were seeking to break away from. The ability of people to peaceably gather and protest. The ability of people to say what they thought without fearing the government would hunt them down and try and stop them from saying things that the government found objectionable. And the people had a right to gather and to believe and to pray and have faith that was unique to them and not one that the government told them they had to prescribe to. So while I can't settle constitutional law in the office of the mayor, what I can do is everything in my power in the city of Frederick to give my residents the right to do all of those things in my community as they see fit. And that's why, particularly during the summer of 2020, when we experienced 9 consecutive days of protests in downtown Frederick after the murder of George Floyd, our police department helped protesters on many sides of that issue exercise their First Amendment right and do that in a way that was not without disruption to people who may have wanted something else in that moment, but in a way that did allow those protesters to peacefully exercise their rights, and that's how it went down. If there were any arrests that were made during that very interesting summer of 2020 with COVID overlaid on top of those protests, and even today with the No Kings protests, the Charlie Kirk Memorial in Baker Park, our obligation is to give people access to public spaces, to allow our parks, when appropriate, our sidewalks, and in some cases our streets, to be the places where people can make speeches and exercise their First Amendment right. And as mayor, we're going to use our resources to ensure that people can do that, whether we agree with what they're saying or not, because that's what the First Amendment guarantees.
Mr. Kratz.
I think our Frederick Police Department has done an excellent job, along with our judges from Frederick County and the state, along with all our local officials, in making sure everybody has a venue where they can speak. And I think it does speak well with as many things that we've had going on in the city and how the police departments handle things, because they're really the first line. And it's, we live in a very welcoming community, a diversity of thought, and I'm proud to be a part of it. Thank you.
All right, well, let's start with Mr. Trout on this. In about half of Gorman's Mill, cell phone reception is bad. How can the mayor help?
Well, it's so funny. I've been preparing for that question, so I'm really glad. I lived in Clover Hill for 15 years or 20 years, which is, of course, the island right over here to the west of you. We have similar issues. I always blamed it on Fort Detrick with their large, the radar antennas and everything else. I do not know what we can do to make that happen. And I don't know whether I think we've already explored having other cell towers and that sort of thing here. So I'm open for any suggestions from the people on what we can do. And I'm certainly willing to make a phone call and try to make that better, because I do know there's a lot of drop calls and all that, but I have no idea why it's happening. Do I get a mortgage question?
I have AT&T, I don't have any problems, so.
Okay. So I've already taken care of one constituent.
Mr. O'Connor?
So we've heard this concern over the years, and the cell phone service is something that's regulated beyond the city, other than us citing cell towers and giving the providers access to your water towers, your building. We've tried to streamline that leasing process. When I came into office, as a member of the Board of Aldermen, we did not have standardized leasing policies with the providers. It would seem to me that it is in the best interest of AT&T, Verizon, the other providers, that they would want a reliable network that functions on behalf of their customers, or why else would people sign up for their service? So when I hear about this problem, I'm always mystified. The businesses that actually operate these services don't want to come in and fix the problem without government having to bang on their door and say, why won't you provide our residents with something that they're paying you to give them? What we have done in the past, when we've heard these concerns, is we've gone to where the regulating authority lies, which is out of state. And so we've advocated to our Frederick County delegation in Annapolis. We've reached out to the Public Service Commission and the other regulating entities to make them aware. This is not a utility in the same way that electricity is a utility, or the water and sewer might be a utility. But I can tell you our reliance on these devices and the data that we get through them, for many people who've cut their service on terrestrial communications, that reliable service in an emergency is essential. And we'll continue to do what we've been doing, which is to advocate to the state and others to come and actually do the data collection that's necessary to determine whether or not there's something unique about the way those providers are providing service in this area, or whether there's something unique about this area that somehow is making the service as not as reliable as residents would expect when you're paying a bill to somebody for something that you want to be reliable. So we'll continue to do what we can to work with the residents and try and hold the providers' feet to the fire.
Mr. O'Connor, when I looked at my morning news post, Kathy Nash was talking about the data centers. What should Frederick do to manage data centers inside the city?
So, I've just made reference to the amount of reliance we have on our digital devices. I think that data centers are an inevitability. They already are an inevitability. And so the question is, we're going to bring them into the city of Frederick. What does that look like? Presently, our use matrix, section 404 of the Land Management Code, does not have data centers as a permitted use in the city of Frederick. And just because something isn't, there are some uses that when they're not in the Land Management Code in that section 404 of uses that are, there's a way that you can sort of like connect the dots and say, well, that's like this other thing. And so we'll consider that piece of the code to cover this. We don't have anything in our code presently that's anything like these. So we actually have to develop regulations. And I think we can learn a lot from Loudoun County and the mistakes that they've made. And I've talked to officials in Loudoun County through my work with the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. We can learn from their mistakes, the process that the county is going through now to try and determine what the right regulatory framework for data centers is in Frederick County. It's about placement. It's about setbacks. Ultimately, it's about whether or not they can get the energy from the electric companies or some other provider who can generate the power that they need to do that. And Fred, in the city of Frederick, is about can we provide them with the water resources. Tom and I were, this is the second half of a doubleheader for us doing a candidate event tonight. And earlier tonight, we were on the radio talking about not data centers specifically, but this issue of adequate public facilities. Our ability to provide the necessary water to any user, whether it's a data center or anybody else, is the number one go, no go in our code, because we cannot jeopardize the city's sustainability broadly by running out of water and sewer capacity. So that's we have to develop the regulations and determine where, if anywhere in the city, it's most appropriate, and ensure that we can deliver particularly water resources. And that's a conversation with the community of, do we want to? They're going to need to be somewhere, as long as we're going to carry phones and tablets in the pockets.
Mr. Pratt?
So Loudoun County and Fairfax County, we certainly know they have a ton of data centers, so they've made a lot of money. If you can look at governments that's making money off of these data centers, no doubt. Buddy Reiser is their economic development person that has that saddle around his neck, or was able to bring a lot of those there. He was my roommate in college. I've talked to him a couple times on the issues. There are pros and cons to these data centers, and we don't have a place for them right now, but it's certainly an issue we're going to need to be cognizant of. And again, the utilities, the electricity, the water, I don't know that we have the resources to consider the city. I know the county's really looking forward to doing that at East Salco and their old spot, but I do not believe that that the people are demanding it. A lot of the property owners around there, where these lines are gonna need to run or not for it. So I think as a community, at least in the city, we need to come together, and if we can figure out spots for them that make sense, then we can have them. If we can't, that just won't be something that we have going on in Fredererick City.
Next question, Mr. Scott. What should happen with the downtown convention center? How much money should Frederick invest and for what?
Well, I'm excited that the convention center is finally getting started. When I look at the visitation hotel, that took just a couple years to get done. This convention center, because we've involved every layer of government, the only thing I'm happy about is the Maryland's. I lose my mic. It's the Maryland Stadium Authority. Some of that money that we put down there is actually coming back here for use. I'm not up to giving people with a lot of money low interest rate loans that are government guaranteed, and they aren't really guaranteed by us, but it's our money being put out there. So I think just the project's far enough along that we can't back out, but the people that are building it are now trying to find investors. So once it's done, it's really, they're only going to have an upside and no downside. And I think there's potential downside for the taxpayer. Having said that, I'm ready to get the thing done and let's move on. It's a spot that's approved for it, and it's at this point in my mind a done deal.
So this is a good example of projects that you want and there seems to be a consensus for are still not always easy. And this certainly has been a project that's taken a long time to get to where we want it to be. The financing from the last conversation that I had with the private developer that's putting in the lion's share of the funding in this project is their equity raise is at virtually 100%. So this project is go. The city, the county, and the state have all made financial commitments to the project. The city and county, in ways that will ensure that we, at some point within the life of the development, will get a return on that investment. The money is going to come back to us. And at the point that we expect that the funds will actually fully, when the project is, the uptake is complete. The state is putting funding into this project, and that was an ask that my predecessor had made to the governor who preceded this one and couldn't gain any traction. For whatever reason, there wasn't a partnership between the city, the state delegation, the county, and the state prior to my getting into office. But when I arrived, we worked very hard to build strong relationships with our delegation, to work with the new administration, the Mayoral administration when they came in, to have them recognize and understand the value of this project. I'm happy to say it is a hotel and conference center, not a convention center, and I think that's a distinction worth noting, because this is not a place where giant conventions are going to be held. It's 25,000 square feet of meeting space, and it's important to remember this project was initiated because our Chamber of Commerce and their major employers group had identified that we were missing this opportunity for our major employers to bring conferences to town. Their leadership wanted places to stay in downtown Frederick, and it just didn't exist. It's 200 rooms. The visitation project moved forward more quickly for a whole variety of reasons. One of those being that they were able to build a substantial number of for sale condominiums, which helped them to generate the cash and a lot of historic preservation tax credits to bring that former school into place. This is an entirely apples and oranges kind of a project. And I'm excited that we're literally sitting now on the 1 inch on this project. And it's going to be a real opportunity for downtown Frederick, more importantly for our business community and for our residents.
Mr. O'Connor, in a recent League of Women Voters Forum, one of the candidates who are here tonight said he would reduce property tax rates from, let's round it and say 70 cents per $100 to 60 cents per $100. That's a 14% reduction in property tax. Comes out to about $13 million. To put that into perspective, you could pay for that reduction if you eliminated all the road projects in the city of Frederick. So here's the question. If you favor a 14% reduction, how will you pay for it? If you favor basically the budget as it stands, defend your position.
So that wasn't me, by the way. I'm not, and I want to be clear, I'm not opposed to cutting taxes, but I think there's a process that one should go through when you're going to do that, and that's to understand what the cost of a tax cut is going to be, and to balance that equation at the same time, and not hope that you can come up with a plan to pay for some reduction, because our budget is a service delivery budget. We put virtually every penny of tax dollars that we collect into service delivery, whether that's funding our police department, or public works, the back of the house operations like legal, finance, and budgeting, parks department, what we're doing in the Department of Housing and Human Services in helping residents all across the city. I understand that the budget has gotten bigger. We've held the tax rate constant and have taken advantage of the fact that this is a desirable place for people to live, and property tax assessments have increased. People love that when they want to sell their property. They love it less when they're paying their tax bill. I think I understand that intellectually. Our challenge, and what I've always committed to as mayor, is we're not going to take one more penny of tax dollars. Then we need to provide the services that our residents demand. And the cost of doing business isn't going down. Our road projects are more expensive today, not just in actual dollars, but in inflated dollars as well, because of immigration crackdowns, tariffs, cost of goods and services. It's not cheaper for the city to operate today than it was 5 years ago. That expanding tax base is what allows us to pay employees competitive wages to come and do the jobs that our residents need to have done. Whether that's mowing parks or plowing streets or fixing streetlights. And so if we're going to talk about a tax cut, that has to be done in a responsible way where we're looking at all sides of that equation and not simply saying something that sounds good as a political slogan, but lacks integrity as an actual policy approach.
Mr. Pratt?
Over the last 8 years, our budget's gone up 60%. Our population's gone up 20%. We've had opportunities to reduce the tax rate that we haven't taken advantage of, and I intend to take advantage of it. I think when I meet with the county concerning some duplicative services that the city offers and the county offers, I think we're going to find some more synergies there. I'm not afraid to look at that 1981 formula that they came up with that differentiates or gives us a slight tax increase from the county. We're double taxed in so many ways as city residents, and I'm going to make it a priority to get that down. And 14% over 4 years, that's probably a tall ask. I also know there's, we're going to take a look at all the budgets. I know our communications budget, for example, is going up tremendously in the city of Frederick. Is it important? Are these things that are helping all the citizens? Are there things that the citizens have demanded of us or not? And we're going to be looking line by line and That's what I'm gonna do. I, own a business. I know what it's like to have to make a payroll. And I'm gonna be focused on being a taxpayer mayor, and everything that I authorize is gonna be through that lens. And I think we can do a lot better than what we've done, and I think we get a lot better deal from the county, and I think we can reduce the burden. Every day I'm talking to people who are having trouble paying their mortgage, or they're wondering why the payments are going up. They're still in the same house, so every time a property gets assessed for $10,000 more, that shouldn't mean that Tom Trott as mayor of Frederick gets an extra $70 or $170 from them. We need to put the taxpayer in the driver's seat again, and that's what I'm gonna do.
Mr. Trott, notable changes to the budget expenses from 2025 to 2026 are a 83% decrease for city housing, a 34% decrease for community development, and a 37% decrease in capital improvement budget. Please comment on these budget changes.
Well, I expect that those are down mainly because we've just been saving the money. We've been collecting the MPDU fees and just holding on to them. We started the rental program where all the rental properties are registered. We've taken those fees and just held on to them. So I think you're referring to the fact that money's not being spent and just being held. More recently, we've seen some of that money released, and I hope to figure out, equitable ways for that money to be going and helping their Frederick citizens with their housing and other needs.
Mr. O'Connor.
You pulled numbers out of the budget, and while I appreciate that the numbers are accurate, without seeing the context of them on a page, it is a bit difficult to comment intelligently on this, because it was several months ago and I didn't memorize the budget before I came in here, and I apologize for that in advance. I can tell you that when it comes to community development and housing, it is the housing fund and dollars that we collect that helps to drive whether or not we're putting money in the budget to do certain things. Community development is a slightly different animal because that's largely federally grant funded and could be driven in part by changes in the way federal funds are flowing into the city of Frederick. Without actually looking at the line items, I'm not trying to equivocate on the question. I can tell you that the budget that was adopted, the budget that is in effect right now, is the budget that I presented. It is a budget that, in my mind, fairly provides the services that we need to in order to support our residents. On the capital improvements program, that is a somewhat, it's difficult to sort of look at a year-to-year comparison, because some of what funds our capital improvements program is the unbudgeted, unallocated, unaudited surplus from the prior year. And we feel comfortable spending some of that money, but we don't feel comfortable spending all of that. And we certainly, coming into this budget year, we're much less confident in spending some of our reserves because of cuts that were happening at the federal level and us not really understanding what those impacts would be. And if we saw tremendous changes in either income tax revenue or property tax revenue because of anything happening unusual with the market or with the economy because of federal furloughs and layoffs, we wanted to make sure that we were protecting some of our programs and services. And we're still waiting. We don't know yet what the revenue projections for next fiscal year are going to look like. This is a reassessment year in the city of Frederick, and we're going to find out if the assessments of the last 3 years are a trend that will continue, or if we're going to see some kind of a reset. So I apologize that I don't think I've given a very graceful answer to the question, but we're committed to budgeting with honesty, integrity, and transparency.
Mr. Trott, for many years, the informal model of the Frederick County Chamber of Commerce has been live here, work here. There are two parts to the model. In order to work here, the county has to have employers. In order to live here, the workers have to have affordable housing. So the first part of my question is, how could Frederick be more employer friendly?
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to our city, when businesses are coming to us, they're deciding between different places. And they're gonna go with the ones that have the better housing situation and have a better situation for where the business is gonna locate. And we've got a city versus county thing. Again, I'll keep going back to the tax rate. It's 1.7, $1.70 per assessed value of the city, and it's $1.10 in the county. So, you know, we're sort of competing against ourselves for some of those things. As far as the city, we need to be focused on workforce housing. And that is having our people here and bringing high paid jobs to the jobs pathway is an important and integral part of that. And we've had some success, and I know we can do better. I think we lose it when somebody goes into the permanent office and realizes how long of a process it can be. We had a great development at Westridge Shopping Center going to go in, and then that project just languished, and now they're going to do a lot less. What I loved about that project is it was dense and it wasn't plowing, it wasn't paving over our fields. It was, right there on the Golden Mile. So those projects, we need to have some priority with those. And with that could come some more costs associated with planning staff and engineers and that sort of thing. And we need to weigh what's going to make our community stronger, and having more people living in Frederick and working in Frederick, not in that order, working in Frederick and living in Frederick is what we need to have as our aim. And that's what I intend to do.
Mr. O'Connor?
So the primary reason the Westridge project rescaled in terms of the housing investment they were going to make is because the market has changed and the cost of delivering products has changed. That's the primary reason. It's not because of the city's regulatory environment. I can tell you, and I've said this a lot over the last 6-8 months of this campaign, we have seen a growth in businesses in the city of Frederick, net 400 plus new businesses since I've been in office. And I can look right here in Gorman's Mill at the beautiful town center that you have. Virtually every one of those businesses has opened in the last 8 years, and it's provided a wonderful amenity. When we're driving into your neighborhood today, I commented to my wife, this is downtown Gorman's Mill. It is a wonderful little city center that has provided some services and supports and amenities that you can easily walk to in this neighborhood. That's the kind of visioning in a planned community that we would want in every neighborhood in the city of Frederick. Our commitment to economic development cannot be questioned in the city of Frederick. One, by virtue of the business growth we have seen, but number two, we've actually expanded the non-residential tax base of the city of Frederick since I've been in office. In other words, we are less reliant today on residential property taxes than we were 8 years ago. And that's a significant shift that marks a commitment to seeing people be able to work and live here. We're not done. We need to continue to see job expansions in the city of Frederick, good jobs. And that's what's happening on Riverside and in those industrial parks as you head east on Monocacy Boulevard across Route 26. The opportunity for large employers, for good paying jobs to come into that part of the city are critical to us continuing to grow our non-residential tax base. Because we talked about taxes a little bit earlier. Because of the way the state law is written, we are over-reliant on property taxes to fund government services. And that puts an unnecessary and undue burden on residents. I'm working actively now through the Maryland Municipal League and with our partners in the state legislature to try and change, for the first time since the late 1960s, the funding formula for local governments to give us an opportunity to be less reliant on property taxes and be able to look at pieces of the sales tax or other revenue vehicles so that we can bring the property tax rate down, but not have to lose services in that process by rebalancing the equation for how we fund local government.
Mr. O'Connor, in April, the Maryland Department of Transportation issued a statement saying Frederick, Maryland, after many years of discussion, work is expected to begin soon on US Route 15 widening project. That is according to Secretary Paul Whitefield.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Former Secretary.
With the Maryland Department of Transportation. He went on to say the governor with the General Assembly did provide for some additional funding so we could get this project started as quickly as possible. What's the mayor's role in the widening of 15?
Advocacy, and we have been doggedly advocating for this project. The city and the county have been our #1 transportation priority. City and county, we've been aligned on this for 2 decades. And I know it's frustrating that you can advocate for a project that we all can see we needed 20 years ago. And it's taken this long to get to this point. But as I said earlier, the state doesn't have unlimited resources for transportation projects either. So the best that we can do at the local government level is to advocate and to build relationships and to build partnerships. And we've done that with the county, with the state, and with our federal partners that we can work with, our United States senators and our Congress people over the last 2 terms. It's about relationships and building the conversations and never letting go of what we've identified as a priority. We had that money 3 years ago placed in the budget for the first time, the construction funding for the first time. It was an enormous win, and then a year later, because of concerns where the state was budgetarily, all of the projects to get new funding were pulled out of the state's consolidated transportation. Nothing was getting. We advocated, we fought. We talked to our delegation, we talked to the secretary, we talked to the governor's office. And we were so happy in April when they announced that the funding was going back in, that we would continue the design and engineering and that the construction will begin in fiscal year 2028. Now, that's going to be a long-term construction project. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's going to create some discomfort in this community. And it is not a project that fixes traffic on Route 15. This is substantially a safety project first that provides some additional lanes of support. We will never pave our way to better traffic. We have to do more with pedestrian access and bicycling, creating more jobs in Fredericks means people don't have to commute so far to go to the work that they need to do. We need better transit options, leaving Frederick for jobs in Washington, D.C. through MARC service, and we're going to continue. And all of those things have been projects we've advocated for to the Maryland Department of Transportation during their annual roadshow and through our ongoing conversations with the governor's office, the secretaries, and so forth. So the mayor's role, dogged, unrelenting advocacy for the projects we know we need in this community.
Mr. Trott.
I think we need to slow the pace of residential development until we have the roads that can support residential development. And that's something that hasn't been brought up because maybe this starts in 2028, maybe they push it off more years. We can't keep having more and more units and more people on our roadways and just clogging everything up. That goes back to the point we were talking about earlier about the hospital, building a hospital out here, or building a development out here. We've got to be judicious with the land that we have. And if that means re-looking at all these developments as we can, or not taking in new ones with a lot of residential development, and that's what we've got to do for a period of time till our infrastructure catches up. I'm really looking forward to the water and sewer service studies that they're doing because we're talking about data centers and things, as Michael pointed out earlier. They're big users of water and electricity, and we're not going to end up taking a windfall from them and turning it into a Route 15 widening. It's just where we are right now. Thank you.
We're going to take a brief stretch now, basically because I need to take a brief stretch, and then we're going to take questions from the audience. And let me say before we take our brief stretch, audience members, I ask you to continue to follow the format and ask questions that both of the candidates will have the opportunity to answer.
Oh, but
Yeah. Okay, well, we clean it out, so.
I'm good. I got
We got, there's 2.5.
Yeah.
More here.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something basically wrong with it. It slopes down. It's better now.
And if it's pointing up, it also won't fall out, but it'll point at his mouth better too. Because the cardioid mics are fairly directional.
The way we're sitting here was just slowly working its way down. But now I think it's better.
Is there a set thumb screw to tighten a little? Not really.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're given please, we're getting a question and answer period in the audience.
Break is over. Oh, guys. Time to come back. You have questions? Ready to go?
Been recalled.
Wait for Tom to sit down first.
as you probably know, we're in the cities and we also pay county taxes on water and sewer. And, on the county water and sewer, I can have automatic, payment, but on the city, the only way I can do it is with my debit card. How come we can't have it that way as the county has it?
So I'm pretty sure you can use your credit card now to pay your water bill.
The next time I got my bill, I called and asked them again, and they said debit card.
Well, I'm gonna check the app tonight before I leave, and let you know for sure.
I know
There
it's
isn't,
paid,
there isn't a reason why you shouldn't be able to use your credit card.
Okay, thank you.
I would encourage you to,
There might be,
There's a fee? I don't have a fee on the county one.
let me look into it.
Okay.
you may be able to do an ACH directly from the account without a fee. But I was gonna suggest if you sell it to me, I take care of it for
There's a piece of property in North Market Street, maybe 103, 113, Rose Place.
you. And you're back here.
I've
Don't pick your mouth.
For 45 years. And I'd say 40 years and 45, it's been closed up. What's the city gonna do about it?
We couldn't hear the question.
It was about Mrs. Rose property when the one on North Market Street where H came out. You want to take it first? Or you want to?
No, I'd love to hear your plan, because I know what we're doing with that property right now, so.
Right, and we're hopefully, I believe me, Michael and I've got to spend a lot of time together. So I know in a week, we're hopefully gonna have a judge that's gonna award us the property, but I also know after that happens, that there's gonna be an appeal and we're not gonna get it. She also has other properties on North Market Street on the opposite side of the street in various states of repair or disrepair. Where the Cuban place was, had been occupied for probably a decade now. We're not doing what we need to do with these properties. We had that ordinance it's obvious to me it's not working. We got one property on West Fourth Street taken care of years ago, and it's taking way too long. We need to find a different approach. We're increasing the property taxes on these places, but again, it's just the wheels of justice are turning so slow with these, and we need to figure out a way to make it happen. Thank you.
So the city made a conscious decision to not use the power of eminent domain when it came to derelict properties or property owners that we believe were not doing the responsible thing in owning the properties. And I'll tell you that it remains an option. We could just, the challenge with eminent domain is that the city has to shell out the money in order to buy the property, and then we have to reposition that property and sell it to get the city's money back, which means the taxpayers are kind of on the hook in a kind of land speculation that I don't love. I like a little more certainty when it comes to the real estate transactions that the city would be involved in. And so we've taken an approach that is slow, I understand that, but it's slow to comply with the rights that property owners have, which is that we're not changing the rules on them and then looking retroactively in order to get them to try and do something. So we passed a blighted property ordinance. The blighted property ordinance did not specifically say long-term vacancies were blighted. So we had to change the blighted property ordinance to make sure that long-term vacancies could in fact be classified as blight. To do that, we had to define what a long-term vacancy was. And it was determined that 4 years was the right amount of time, because that's an amount of time that is long enough that it has probably withstood some economic cycle. Too short, and you could have, it's possible that you could be vacant for a year or two and it's no function in the economy, and certainly if it's longer, vacant for much longer than that, that's a different problem. And so 4 years was not, we couldn't count backwards. We were told by our attorneys, you can't set that retroactively. So we made these changes, the clock started. And it was earlier this year in the spring that the clock hit 4 years on 123, 125 North Market Street. And we intentionally picked one property and one project, and not every property we could have brought in there, because multiple properties would have meant multiple legal actions at the same time. Let's test this entire process that we've worked on for a while to see if it works. And as Tom said, on October 28th, arguments will be in court on the merits of the city's petition to place 123, 125 in receivership. And we're hopeful to get a quick action from the judge. But Tom is probably right. She will probably appeal. And I don't want to say today what the city's response will be if we get a favorable action from the judge from our court appearance on the 28th. But we're going to have a plan for an appeal, and we're going to have a plan for what we do. But we have to see the process through when it comes to properties, when it comes to property rights, and getting people to do the right thing when they just stay above the minimum line. We're doing everything that we can as fast as we can. And I will tell you, it's not fast enough for me. But it is what the lawyers tell us is the approach that we should.
First of all, I'd like to thank both of you for coming out here tonight and giving us a fair and balanced, non-adversarial debate. It takes me back to 19. Thinking of both of you, 2 weeks, give or take, away from the election, how do you feel that the national political situation impacts your races? And if you feel there's an impact, how does it impact you specifically versus your opponent?
So, I mean, it's inescapable, if I'm being honest. We are one of the last 3 municipalities in the state of Maryland that still runs partisan elections. It's us, it's Annapolis, and Dalton. All the other 154 municipalities with local governments elect their local government in nonpartisan races. I like that it's a partisan race because I'm happy to explain why I'm a Democrat and why my values as a Democrat matter to me, and why I think that's relevant to the work that I do every day in the city of Fredererick. But we're in the current national political climate where if you're the opposite letter from what you are, there's a whole different hurdle now that you have to jump over to convince people that ultimately, when it comes to local issues, we don't solve them based on Democrat or Republican ideals. But I will say my values and why I'm a Democrat help me to figure out what I think the right solutions to problems should be. I think that's particularly true when it comes to things like policing or how we deal with the issues that our Department of Housing and Human Services are working with, our approach to being a welcoming community, to immigration enforcement, to protest activity. For me, it informs an approach to problem solving. And I think that what's happening at the federal level right now is really has tremendous potential for negative impacts on the city, whether it's funding cuts that we're going to have to be the ones to step in and fill because we no longer have the kind of reliable federal partner that I think every community just expects to have. The rule book has kind of been torn up in a way, and we're all now trying to figure out what that's going to look like at the end of the day. We're going to continue to focus on what we can control at the city of Frederick, but we're not going to bury our head in the sand and say what's happening in Washington doesn't affect us. It affects us every single day. We have furloughed workers in Frederick today. We have people who are losing their jobs today because of the actions of this administration. And it certainly is affecting the general welfare and morale of communities, not just Frederick, but all across the country. And that saddens. It saddens me as an American that we're in this climate right now.
Thank you, Michael. Well, I'm a Republican and I've been a Republican since 1982, and I'm not changing my party because one person who I disagree with is the head of the party right there. I'm going to do everything I can to be an F, and that's an F for Frederick, not an R for Republican or D for Democrat. This is about the people, and that's what I'm going to be focused on, is the people of Frederick. And I don't think it's putting my head in the sand. I think it's working with what we've got to work with. And it's not getting distracted on issues that we could have no control over. I'm very happy with the response of the Frederick Police Department and how they've been handling things. And they really are a tribute to our whole community. I would like to see a few things changed and tweaked. Obviously, the new facility is fantastic. It went from 13,000 square feet to 67,000. And after the tour of that building, I had no idea how they managed to do it 13,000 square feet among several sites, well, at least 2 sites downtown. So I'm really, I'm anxious to be in this role, and I'm not in this role as a Republican. I'm in this role as a Frederick County with each of you. And that's why I've asked you for my support, to support you.
Thank you.
My name is John Snake with the Women's Building. My family in Frederick for over 30 years. How's this?
Fine.
It's not just like cool. I want to circle back, if you bear with me, to the Frederick health question, but I want to focus it because I think it cuts to the decisions at hand and the tension between desire to develop something that's a community asset, but the timing of being able to have road infrastructure that supports it. This proposal will likely be going on the 10th of November by the city, by the planning council, who has been struggling with this for this very reason. As you both noticed, especially you, Mr. Mayor, the comprehensive transportation plan identifies ideas that need to be addressed. New interchange 2630, right in, right out, which the state disapproved once before, but maybe we take it on the pass that extending Mormansville Road up to the Lansing Boulevard. None of those are programmed, much less funded. And as you said, as you use again, so example, Route 15 has been a traffic dilemma for decades. But if Frederick Health Plan is approved and these guys already bought the property, once it's approved, that multi-use package starts with 750 housing units. That's probably 100,000 cars in the neighborhood. Some elements of the benefit campus, so the things that they listed, assisted living, medical lab, offices, those are all things that you could expect to see in a reasonably short period of time. Years before any major road improvements can be made. So that's the dilemma. You've got a community asset that most would like to see, but we're decades away from a road network. So it comes down to this. The choice is going to be made next 30 days. Do you take the risk of proceeding, knowing that you may be decades away from roads of gridlock, or do you find some way to let them do something else for the problem? Which I don't know how you can do because of the way so the bottom line question is, in this kind of a dilemma, it's kind of an A or B. Go or no go. I'd like to know how you feel we should either go or no go, and if it's go, why?
I'm a no-go at this point until we get the traffic situation squared away. It's an infrastructure issue, and we gotta have that, and we gotta know exactly what we're gonna be dealing with. And you're saying 1,000 cars, it could be 1,500 with 750 units. We need to figure out something. I think we need to figure out something different for that property at this point with what we have going on, the traffic congestion around here. And I don't want to exasperate a problem that we already have. Thank you.
So I think you asked a very thoughtful question. You ever thought about applying to be a member of our planning commission?
Thoughts crossed my mind after going to the.
So, I think it's, this is the challenge, okay? And, we go through the process of evaluating a development. And we do all of the traffic assessments, and it has been noted out when the first plans came through, it was determined that something like 7 intersections, and I think the planning commission wrestled with, what the impact would be of approving a development that we knew was not going to meet the standard at 7 intersections, even if the hospital did maximum mitigation. We also knew that one of the big pieces of that maximum, or a couple of the pieces of the maximum mitigation, were projects that are outside the city's control. Improvements to Route 26 and Oxy Boulevard, potentially ingress and egress off of Route 26. The balance is how much possible failure is too much failure to bear, and is any failure too much. And it is not unique in the city of Frederick and other places where we know that transportation impacts will not be able to be fully mitigated by the developer, but on balance, the project seems more beneficial for the community than not doing the project. One of the things that can happen, and this is one of the options that the planning commission has, are phasing requirements on how certain things can develop over what period of time until certain improvements come. That becomes a normal part. This development is a almost perfect example of phasing requirements. It's taken 30 plus years. I think we're snail building the last units here in Warman's Mill based on phasing requirements and when certain things had to be done before a next thing could happen. The hospital has a plan. If they can't get the project that they want to do through, but I can tell you from talking to them, they don't even love their own options because of the way, as you pointed out, the way the property is zoned. I don't think they want to be a housing developer, but because of the zoning on the property, that's a part of what they have to consider. So we have to look at our land use regulations. We have to look at how these projects get out of the ground, and there are always going to be trade-offs, and we have to figure out at what point the trade-off is more than we can bear. And I wish I could tell you I knew what the answer to that was, but I just don't, because it's the planning commission and the community and data that our planning department collects and develop. We're all working in partnership to come up with the best answer.
Why is the question?
Yeah. Well, because I don't know the answer. I apologize. I wish I knew the answer. The answer could be no. No comes at a cost. And that cost may be healthcare services in this community and the long-term benefit of providing adequate healthcare in this community. And I'm just not sure what the trade is this time. I mean, these are tough questions. I agree.
Is it on? Okay.
I was slightly concerned when you're opening all the vagrancy issue and use the term nuisance, about unhoused people. And I was wondering what you would do, what services you would provide to help people, or are you planning to go with the Trump administration's version of just moving them somewhere else because they're a nuisance? Thanks.
Well, I feel sorry for making you feel that way. I didn't mean for it to come across that way. So right now, we have one gentleman living on Market Street. His name's Thomas. I walk past him a couple times every day and we talk, and he's very comfortable there. A little bit of trash and that sort of thing, but it's a mental health issue. He was in jail for a year, now he's back out, and he wants to live on Market Street. And, I wish, and we've tried to contact some people who want to help him, but that's where he wants to be. And according to the police, he has a right to be there. That park is open 24/7 as a walkway. So it would be something the city council would need to address. I live right there, and I didn't move to the East All Saints Street to try to remove people from there. When I moved there, I knew that these are some of the issues we'd be dealing with. And it's fine a lot of times, but it's not fine when people aren't comfortable bringing their families down on the free, get 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. And it's a function of drug use. It's a function of having the power on in the park. So people can, heat up their apes and their phones and everything. It's very difficult. A lot of it has to do with mental health, and I'm worried about the lack of funding for mental health. And that is the place though in downtown to get the services, and you're gonna see a lot there. So I apologize, I used the word vagrancy. Most of the people there are not unhoused. Not all of them, but most of them have places to go, and I go up and down and creek a lot. When it's nice weather, people just hang out all night long now, particularly around Walnut County, for the new police station around South Carroll and the Creek. And, if it's determined that they really have the rights to be there 24/7 and 7 days a week, then that's the way it's gotta be. I'm not out for the police having their house people, and we need to build trust in our community amongst everyone. And I think we could have some nice compromise to the situation that we've got to go with. Thank you very much for the question.
We build a supportive and welcoming community in Frederick. You can get a morning meal, you can get a noon meal, you can get an evening meal through the City of Frederick's community table. There are abundant social service resources in and around downtown Frederick. Our transit system is free, so that is not an impediment for people moving around the city to the services, supports, and interests that they're inclined to want to visit. In my first term, we put together the Downtown Safety and Services Initiative to try and look comprehensively at some of these questions about service delivery in downtown Frederick. It's urban core, it's the city's urban core, and we're not immune from the same challenges and issues that every city across America has. Affordability, mental health, substance use, access to resources. And part of our efforts have been to build a better connective network. So it's why our police department initiated, we hired a police chief who really wanted to undertake this effort, a crisis response and co-responder model. Not every call for service, and the police are the place that most people call, and people should call the police when they see anything that they think requires response. The co-responder model allows us to bring paramedics or mental health professionals with us, or substance use professionals, to deal with a problem that may or may not be a law enforcement issue, but has people concerned enough to pick the phone and call 911. We're part of law enforcement assisted diversion, another program that we've initiated during my time as mayor, which takes low-level criminal activity, but not criminal activity that warrants incarceration, and attempts to divert people and connect them to services ultimately will keep them out of the criminal justice system. The worst way to get into service is through the front door of the courts. the best way to get service is to connect people before they ever have to come into contact with that. We're seeing slow and steady progress in these areas. The economy doesn't help in terms of costs and where people are economically. We're going to continue to try and approach co-responder with our Department of Housing and Human Services and our police and our partners. We're going to dedicate dollars, and we are dedicating dollars to more permanent supportive housing. We're going to need to do more transitional shelters. We need to work with Beyond Shelter and our capacity to support the chronically homeless. This is a problem that's not going away, and our responsibility as cities to find ways with the greatest amount of compassion and understanding to help people who need help and to address criminal behavior in the most appropriate way we can.
Anybody else?
Terry, any questions back there? We good?
I think both of you did a wonderful job.
Thank both of you gentlemen very much for coming here and spending your evening with us and answering our, hopefully not too impertinent questions. So.